He told her to leave while she was pregnant, not with his child, with someone else's, and instead of rage or grief, Jasmine froze because she understood exactly what that meant. Her body, her housing, her status, all hanging by a thread. The panic didn't start with ice. It started the moment she realized Gino didn't care if she made it or not. Welcome to TLC Drama Live. I'm Sabrina, and today we're cutting straight to the nerve of Jasmine Pineda's most terrifying chapter yet. If you're new here, hit subscribe and tell me in the comments, do you think Gino ever really planned to stay married? By the time Jasmine got the call about immigration, her marriage was already gone. Gino didn't file a police report. He didn't go on social media, he didn't even argue. He told her to move out and she did. Quietly, fast and pregnant. The silence was worse than a fight, because she knew what it meant. He didn't want to fix anything. He wanted her gone. She'd been in the US for months. Married, legally tied, sharing a home, a camera crew and a brand. But Jasmine wasn't just a wife anymore. She was a liability, an emotional expense, a pending story. And Gino, for once, had leverage. With Jasmine out of the house and carrying Matt's child, he no longer had to pretend. He could say nothing and still destroy her. What makes this worse is that Jasmine didn't break a law, she broke a narrative. The wife who needed rescuing turned into the one with options. And once she started choosing herself, Gino shut the door. No legal papers, no public statements, no clue if she could stay. Only a vague threat that he might have gone to immigration. That was the power play. Say nothing, let fear do the rest. But it's not just fear of deportation, it's fear of erasure. Once you're removed from a home, from a husband, from a country, you don't just lose rights, you lose the story. And on a show like this, once the story is gone, the person disappears with it. What if deportation isn't a legal process here? It's the punishment for no longer being useful. The question isn't whether Gino called immigration. The question is whether Jasmine's fear of it was carefully placed. Whether someone close knew that the fastest way to break her wasn't court or custody but silence. And if that silence was calculated, the next move is even more dangerous. Because now, someone stands to gain from her removal. The house is cleared, the storyline is reset. But who benefits if Jasmine never makes it back? And more importantly, was that the point all along? When Jasmine first landed in Michigan, she wasn't chasing a dream, she was chasing survival. The apartment was small, the weather brutal, and the man she gave up everything for acted like she owed him receipts. He picked her up at the airport with a goofy smile and a baseball cap. But the second the cameras stopped rolling, it was clear. This wasn't a home, it was a test. She left her job, her kids, her independence in Panama for a man who told her she'd be safe. That he'd support her, love her, protect her. Instead, he gave her a spreadsheet. From the very first episode of their American chapter, Gino treated Jasmine like a financial investment. Every dollar came with strings. He had control of the money, the car, the groceries, the Wi-Fi password. Love was measured in budgets. Publicly, they posed like a couple chasing the American dream. Privately, Jasmine was rationing shampoo. She wasn't allowed to spend without permission. He wanted her to be grateful for food, grateful for rent, grateful for being let in, but she wasn't begging, she was building a life, and that made her a threat. The intimacy faded faster than the snow melted. What looked like quirky incompatibility on TV was suffocating in real life. He mocked her skincare, ignored her affection, slept fully clothed. The woman he once called sexy was now too loud, too expensive, too emotional. She cried, he blinked. She reached out, he shrugged. There was no connection, only distance. And when she tried to speak up online, not on screen, Jasmine's tone was different. Not dramatic, not desperate, just done. She posted less about love and more about loneliness. Less about Gino and more about goals. But even that was too much. Because any step toward independence was seen as rebellion. The marriage was never unconditional. It was a contract with hidden clauses. Stay quiet, stay grateful, don't push, don't shine. Jasmine didn't break those rules at once. She chipped at them slowly, but Gino noticed. And instead of talking, he withdrew. That's why therapy wasn't just a storyline. It was her last attempt to be heard. Not to be fixed but to be seen. And the decision to open that door, even with cameras watching, wasn't about saving the relationship. It was about finding out if the relationship ever really existed in the first place. What Jasmine learned in those sessions wasn't new. It was confirmation. But what came next? That was the risk that changed everything. Therapy didn't bring them closer. It exposed how far apart they already were. They sat in that session like two people who'd read different scripts. Jasmine wanted connection, reassurance, physical touch. Gino wanted quiet. He thought silence meant stability, She thought silence meant abandonment. So when the therapist suggested exploring alternatives to fix the emotional void, they didn't laugh. They didn't flinch, they agreed. The open marriage wasn't about sex, it was about control. Gino couldn't give Jasmine what she needed, and he knew it. But instead of stepping up, he gave her permission to get it elsewhere with conditions. The rules were simple on paper: no secrets, no overnight stays, no emotional attachments, and most importantly, mutual honesty. But those rules only worked one way. Jasmine brought Matt in. Not behind Gino's back, but in full view. She told him, introduced him, made it part of the process. Gino, on the other hand, stayed detached. He didn't ask questions. He didn't want details. He didn't even act jealous. Because this wasn't about sharing, it was about distancing. If Jasmine got what she wanted elsewhere, Gino didn't have to try. That wasn't consent, that was escape. Matt wasn't a boyfriend, he was a proxy. Someone who gave Jasmine softness when Gino offered silence. Someone who saw her when Gino refused to. And in the beginning, Jasmine treated it like a temporary solution. She checked in, she followed the rules. But the dynamic shifted fast. Gino had all the power when Jasmine lived under his roof. But once Matt became more than a side character, Jasmine's position changed. She had someone else to talk to, someone who didn't withhold affection. Someone who didn't treat her presence like a burden. That scared Gino, but not in the way people think. He wasn't worried about cheating. He was worried about losing the upper hand. Because with Matt in the picture, Jasmine no longer needed to beg for attention. She could walk out and know someone was waiting. That's when Gino started rewriting the rules. Suddenly, emotional closeness became betrayal. Spending time together became manipulation. And eventually, Gino didn't just pull back, he kicked her out. Pregnancy ended the game. It was no longer an experiment, it was permanent. Jasmine wasn't temporarily involved. She was building something else, and it didn't include Gino. Whether the pregnancy was planned or not didn't matter. What mattered was that Jasmine's life was now rooted in someone else, and Gino had no claim. He didn't argue. He didn't scream, he packed her bags with silence. Because once the balance tipped, he stopped pretending. This wasn't about saving anything, it was about removing the complication. And Jasmine, now carrying new life, was seen as the complication itself. The day Jasmine found out she was pregnant, everything in her life split. There was before, and there was after. Before, she was clinging to a marriage she didn't trust but still believed could be repaired. After, she knew there was no fixing it. Because when she told Gino, he didn't react like a husband. He reacted like someone evicting a tenant. He didn't yell, he didn't accuse, he asked her to leave. She had no income, no savings, no job lined up. She was newly pregnant in a country that wasn't hers, with no guarantee she could stay. Gino didn't offer a backup plan. He offered the door. And Jasmine, holding her stomach, walked through it alone. The apartment wasn't hers. The lease wasn't in her name. Her name wasn't on the car, the credit cards, or any of the legal ties that would have given her footing. She'd been living in a house, not a home, and now she didn't have either. Gino's move was silent but sharp. He didn't file for divorce, he didn't cancel the marriage. He didn't make a scene, because he didn't have to. Once Jasmine was out, she lost access to everything that kept her status secure. And he knew that. He knew exactly how fragile her position was, and he used it. The scariest thing about being married on paper is realizing the paper means nothing. Matt helped her find a temporary place. He brought food. He stood by, but he didn't replace anything. He didn't become a provider or a rescuer, he became a witness. He saw Jasmine unravel in real time. And instead of rushing in with promises, he listened. Which made his presence feel safe. That's all she needed, safety. But Jasmine knew the difference between help and power. With Gino, help always came with control. With Matt, it came with silence. That's why she trusted him, not to fix everything, but to let her breathe. Still, nothing about her situation was secure. She was still legally married to Gino, but no longer protected by the relationship. There was no confirmation of her status, no public discussion, no guarantees, and that's when the panic started creeping in. Not from anything Gino said, but from what he didn't. No contact, no paperwork, no updates. He didn't argue, didn't respond, didn't threaten. But in the back of her mind, Jasmine kept circling the same question. What happens if he says she broke the terms? Because if Gino could decide when the marriage began, could he also decide when it stopped counting? For Jasmine, that was the moment everything shifted. She stopped seeing herself as a wife. Because what kind of marriage needs a signature to exist, but a silence to disappear? Jasmine wasn't hysterical when she said it. She was still, focused, almost mechanical. On screen, she told Michelle, Gino's cousin's wife, that Gino had called her to say he'd already gone to immigration, that he was done, that she'd be deported. No yelling, no lawyers, just a phone call. That moment hit like a slow explosion. Because Jasmine didn't scream or beg, she went quiet, which told viewers everything. She believed him, or at least she believed he could. That statement, "he already went to immigration," was never confirmed by Gino himself. Not publicly, not legally, no receipts, but it didn't need proof to be terrifying. Jasmine's panic wasn't about paperwork. It was about isolation. Once Gino removed himself, she had no idea what doors he was knocking on. She told Matt about the call. And he, like the rest of us, froze. Not because it was definitely true, but because it could be. That's what made it dangerous. Not the report, the threat of one. There's no evidence Gino filed anything. No notice from USCIS, no ICE detainment. Jasmine was still in the country, still posting online, still filming. But fear doesn't need facts, it needs silence. And Gino gave her that in abundance. Fear is most powerful when it's quiet, vague, and perfectly timed. Matt said it out loud. "I'm scared just like you are." And that's when it became clear. This wasn't about immigration. This was about control. Gino had no legal win here. Even if Jasmine left, there's no payoff for him. He doesn't get money. He doesn't get custody. He doesn't even get narrative redemption. What he gets, if he did say it, is emotional closure. The cold satisfaction of knowing she's afraid, that she's watching the door, that she's waiting for a knock that may never come, and maybe that was enough. Because if you know someone doesn't have safety, you don't need to take anything away. You just need to imply you might. So maybe the real punishment wasn't losing the marriage, it was making Jasmine question whether her presence in this country was ever truly welcome. The screenshots started showing up first. Tags on Jasmine's Instagram posts, ICE, CPS, deportation, neglect, not from trolls, from viewers, followers, former fans. Then came Jasmine's own words. She said, even some ex-cast member did it. No name, no face, but the implication was clear. This wasn't just random noise. Someone from inside the franchise wanted her gone. That post exploded. Blogs reposted it. Comment sections lit up with speculation. People connected dots that may or may not exist. Was it Angela? They'd clashed before. Was it Debbie? She once accused Jasmine of harvesting American dollars. Was it Stephanie, who defended Gino in the past and questioned Jasmine's backstory? None of them were named, but all of them were suspected. The internet doesn't wait for proof. It builds stories out of silence. Jasmine saying someone did it, but refusing to say who created a vacuum. And in that vacuum, fan theories flourished. TikToks were made, Reddit threads bloomed, accusations morphed into headlines. But here's where it gets murky. If Jasmine knows who tried to get her deported, why protect them? If she's making it up, why risk public sympathy turning? And if it's true, what do they gain? Fame, revenge, power? Silence always costs more than disclosure, especially when safety is on the line. Jasmine also claimed racism was behind the report. She said this wasn't about how she came to the country, it was about who she is. Her words weren't vague. She said she'd been called names, that people wished horrible things on her. And while it's easy to write that off as internet hate, she tied it back to a specific ex-cast member. That raises the stakes. Because this isn't just about immigration anymore. It's about character assassination. If someone targeted her legal status out of spite, that's not drama, that's sabotage. But if she's wrong, or if she's exaggerating, she's risking her own credibility in the middle of a fragile immigration situation. This is where silence becomes a trap. Without naming the person, Jasmine fuels rumor cycles that can't be corrected. And if the person she's accusing never speaks up, the audience is left to guess forever. The chaos helps no one. Not the fans, not Jasmine, not even the cast member she might be protecting. By staying quiet, Jasmine might think she's taking the high road, but she could be walking herself right off the edge. Jasmine stopped posting selfies. The filters faded. The gym updates paused. In place of curated content came shaky videos. Baby on her lap, circles under her eyes, silence in the background. No music, no sponsors, just her and exhaustion. She captioned one clip with a single phrase. One day at a time. The hashtags told the rest of the story. Postpartum, missing home, doing her best. She didn't say she was depressed. She didn't have to. Her face said it louder. Fans noticed. Her energy changed. She wasn't snapping back with comebacks or flaunting workouts. She was slower, more inward. When one follower commented, "You three look like a normal, loving family," Jasmine replied with the words nobody expected. "I'm going through so much depression." And then came the hate. Anytime she mentioned her baby, people asked about her other kids. When she posted joy, they responded with guilt. What about your sons? Where are they? Why aren't they with you? She tried to answer once gently. She said it's a process, that she's praying it moves faster, that she feels bad enough already, but they didn't stop. Every time she spoke about motherhood, she got shamed for it, as if her grief wasn't enough. As if being separated from her children was a lifestyle choice, not a legal and logistical nightmare. Sometimes the hardest part isn't being judged, it's being judged while you're already broken. Her baby girl, Matilda, became her whole world, but even that joy came with fear. Jasmine had struggled with fertility, she'd talked about arrhythmia, alopecia, health scares. And now, in her most vulnerable state, she was being called unfit, selfish, fake. She never posted the breakdown. Only the aftermath, a clean house, a quiet moment, a walk outside. But the stillness in those posts was heavy. Like someone trying to hold their breath for an entire day. She was still legally married, still waiting for her sons to arrive, still trying to build a life that didn't crumble every time the internet turned on her. But inside, the lines blurred. She wasn't Gino's wife, not really. She wasn't Matt's partner, not officially. She wasn't in Panama. She wasn't fully present in America. She had children she couldn't reach. A baby she was scared to raise alone. And an audience that couldn't decide whether to praise her or punish her. So she started asking herself the one question she never imagined. If she's not wanted here and no longer safe there, where exactly is she supposed to go? Before reality TV, Jasmine was a teacher, a PhD, a woman who stood at the front of classrooms in Panama, teaching kids with structure, purpose, routine. That version of Jasmine didn't scream on screen. She didn't beg or spiral. She worked, quietly, consistently, until she met Gino. Once she left her job and came to America, her options shrank. No teaching license here. No legal work status without proper paperwork. No income unless it came from the show or something fast. So she did what a lot of cast members do. She turned to Cameo, she modeled. She sold her image, her time, her personality. It wasn't glamour, it was survival. Jasmine never pretended her choices were prestige, she said it herself. She needed to support herself. She had kids back home. She had no fallback, so she monetized what she had, an audience. For some, that looked like manipulation, but for Jasmine, it was hustle. And when that hustle wasn't enough, she started building forward. Protein powder, brand collabs, social fitness content. Then she said she wanted to get a real estate license. Something tangible, something stable, not to flex, to function. Fans mocked her. They said she was trying too hard to stay relevant, that she'd try anything for a green card. That ambition made her desperate. But when Gino held the money, and TLC held the edits, what exactly was she supposed to do? Wait, there's a strange rule in reality TV. The second a woman tries to stand on her own, people assume she's scheming. That's why Jasmine's next move raised eyebrows. She posted that she felt called to study law, immigration law. She said maybe that was her path now. Maybe helping others fight to stay would help her feel like she deserved to. People rolled their eyes. Said she was pretending to be a victim. Said no one with OnlyFans history belongs in a courtroom. But Jasmine wasn't asking for permission. She was expressing survival. That maybe, just maybe, if she could understand the system that scared her most, it wouldn't have the power to destroy her again. That irony cut deep. The same country that made her feel disposable now lit the fire to make her fight for permanence. Not through marriage, not through a man, but through knowledge. And if immigration fear pushed her toward law, maybe fear wasn't the enemy, it was the engine. She sat in the driver's seat, camera tilted slightly, smile pulled tight, and said nothing. Just turned the key, started the car, pulled away. It wasn't a flex, it was a milestone. For the first time since coming to the US, Jasmine could move without waiting for someone to take her. She didn't need Gino's car, didn't need Matt's schedule, didn't need to ask. She could drive herself. Alone. That meant more than convenience. It meant freedom. When she lived with Gino, mobility was power. He had the car, the keys, the money. If she needed to go somewhere, it had to fit his day. He chose when they left, where they went, how long they stayed. That kind of control adds up. It chips at dignity. It reinforces dependence. It turns errands into negotiations. Jasmine posted nothing fancy, no big caption. Just her, in a car, heading somewhere quietly, but the meaning was loud. She was finally claiming something for herself. Not a baby, not a brand. A simple ability to go where she wanted. That's why it mattered. Sometimes independence doesn't start with a decision, it starts with a destination you can reach without asking. But behind the small win sat a bigger ache. Her sons, still in Panama, still waiting. She'd said before she was doing everything she could to bring them, that the process was hard, expensive, slow, that she wasn't abandoning them, that she cried about it daily, but progress had stalled. And the longer they stayed away, the more Jasmine looked like someone who'd chosen a new life. She never said that. In fact, she insisted the opposite. She was building stability so her sons would have a home when they arrived, a safe place, a mother with income, with a license, with the ability to pick them up, not ask for a ride, but the paperwork didn't care about intent. The system only moves when someone on the inside pushes, and Jasmine didn't have that leverage. Gino did. And if he'd stepped back or worse, stepped away completely, her son's future was hanging in limbo. Now she could drive, but she still couldn't bring her family together. And that gap, between personal control and legal stagnation, kept her stuck in a loop she couldn't fix. So she faced the choice she'd been dreading for months: keep chasing a life in America without her children, or go back to Panama and start from zero but whole. No one ever confirmed a divorce. Not Jasmine, not Gino, not TLC, no papers filed on screen, no documents posted online, just silence. The same silence that followed her move out, the same silence that swallowed her fear, and the same silence that made it easy for people to pretend she was still married, until it was convenient not to. She stayed legally tied to a man who no longer answered her calls, who no longer shared a roof, who might not have called immigration. That part, still unconfirmed. Jasmine said he told her, he hasn't denied it. No official agency confirmed it, but again, it's not about proof, it's about pressure. And Jasmine's entire life, even now, still hangs in that tension. She's not detained, she hasn't been deported, she hasn't gone back to Panama, but she hasn't been given peace either. Her marriage is a ghost, her legal future floats. And the cameras, they love it. Because for reality TV, ambiguity is gold. A woman in limbo is more interesting than a woman with answers. Fans keep asking, why doesn't she just leave? Why doesn't she go home? But go home to what? She'd be returning not to freedom, but to loss. Loss of visibility, of income, of agency, and worst of all, of any path back for her kids. Because here's the part people miss. Marriage was never Jasmine's real protection. It was her illusion of protection. The second that illusion cracked, so did her access to safety. Not because of laws, but because of incentives. TLC thrives on chaos. Online audiences reward humiliation. And the immigration system is too slow to care unless someone pushes the button. So maybe the real question isn't who deported Jasmine, but who stood to gain if she disappeared. Because for every woman like Jasmine left dangling in a legal and emotional gray zone, there's someone getting more screen time, more sympathy, more room to speak. And if you think this story ends with silence, you haven't seen what happens when the next cast member loses their protection too.